What's happening, guys? Welcome to our 10th Tuesday meeting.
You don't need to number them.
I
This
need to
is
number
just
them
why.
so that
It's
they
really
know we're
weird.
actually staying consistent and
All
doing what
right.
we want to do.
You do you, buddy.
Today we have Brendan and Daniel with Resolve Real Estate Solutions. I met Brendan a few years back actually at an engagement party. And people were like, "Oh, he's in real estate, you're in real estate, you guys should start talking." And through some friends of friends, and they've been really just kind of a great resource for us since then. They are local investors. You guys have been around for about 7 years down in the San Diego market, buying, flipping, holding. You guys have done, I think, about 700 million in transactions. And San Diego is obviously your guys' made market, but you guys are buying kind of throughout Southern California. So, yeah, we were really excited to have you guys kind of come on, run through how you guys value deals, look at deals, how you guys work with real estate agents. One of our big pushes right now for our agents is going out and just trying to get more deals, compete with the wholesalers, compete with those cash offers. And so you guys obviously have a ton of great programs, always kind of putting the agent first and like helping agents instead of just trying to go around agents and go direct to consumer and screw us out of commissions, if you will. Excited for you guys to kind of come on. For all of the link agents that are on this, a lot of these cash offer programs that we're telling you about and things you could pitch kind of come from these guys. And so you'd be working directly with them, depending on who the client is. And yeah, so we're excited for you guys to kind of run through what you guys run through. And yeah, we'll go from there.
Yeah, thanks for having us, man. Really appreciate it. Yeah, Brendan and I have been super active, so excited to share with you some strategies and then yeah, how we can kind of partner together on transactions for sure. Can you make me a host or allow me to share?
There you go.
Let's see. Tech. See if we can get this figured out. Um, cool. Let me get this opened up. All right, cool. Here's like, you guys see my screen?
Not quite yet.
Let me know.
Yep, there you go.
All right, cool. This is my face. Brennan's face is here too. Um, anyway, but yeah, talking to Kobe, we've done a lot of transactions here. I like to consider itself a go-to distressed property resource, not only as a buyer, but we can really help also on the lending side as well. So we do a lot of acquisitions. So I'll go through those today, like creatively, but also cash deals, and what that means. And also we do private and hard money lending. So when a distressed property comes up, you can't get a conventional loan on them. This is why cash offers exist or hard money loans even exist. And so an investor will go to a hard money lender. We broker those loans. We can fulfill those loans to other investors and also you guys if you come across properties as well. So like we take more the educational approach through transactions as opposed to just like a buyer or just like another name on your kind of Rolodex to call or your phone really. And we're an unlicensed investor. We do carry licenses. We do not use them. We do not act as broker. So agents represent us to buy everything we buy. And it can be as simple as having just like an off-market property that you have a listing on, or you don't have a listing on, but like they have a single party with you, like whatever. We don't ever use any licensing in our deals. So we can buy in acquisitions. When we do fix and flip, it would be a fix and flip. You can relist. And then, so we're very, very flexible when it comes to how we structure those, and every deal is a little bit different. On a monthly basis, we pay out somewhere between, I mean, it's really been an interesting market as we all understand. Somewhere between probably up to about 300,000 on average of agent commissions. Some months are less depending on the month, honestly, of transactions. So we do not use our license. So that's really important for people to understand.
Ask you a question on that regard.
Yep.
So you guys have a license but don't use it. Are you still held to the standards of a licensed agent, or you guys, or do you not have your broker's license or real estate license? What license do you guys have?
No, we're just doing, I mean, the only licensing we sister on is a broker's license for with the financial designation to broker hard money loans. But we don't do any real estate. So as we have relationships with brokerages and teams, we'll call them up and say, hey, we got this listing. As we, as we find opportunity, because people come to us, I don't know, a couple times a year, a few times a year looking to sell properties, or if we're looking to sell some properties, we just call an agent and say, hey, sell it for us.
Got it.
So we don't use any of them. That helps answer your question.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh, you're good. I'm big on consumer sentiment. I think there's a lot of different indices people follow. And so I always kind of tend to like, I'm a big data person as an investor. I like to look, investors, what makes, learning how to do it yourself and also just understanding we're very sensitive to the market because everything is affected by, and every little feeling affects all of our businesses, especially in real estate right now. So consumer sentiment to me has always wagged the dog for the most part when it comes to transactions. A lot of people talk about interest rates and inventory. Those are critical, obviously. But regardless of what interest rates and inventory is, sentiment is what moves transactions, period. It's how people feel. And like, even though there's going to be a rate drop, what, today, tomorrow, whatever, 50 basis points, overall, which affects really, credit cards and some auto loans. Home loans have already moved, but there's still lower sentiment than even September. And what the sentiment does is it tracks like a 12-month timeline. And effectively, unless the market, if you guys kind of see, I'm sure if you kind of looked at your brokers, you probably peaked in transactions around, I mean, look how low sentiment was very low here, obviously, down here in 2020. But there's a lot of transactions happening through 22, 23, and some of the summer months too, kind of spring, summer. And it's kind of back down again, which is interesting because I feel like transaction volumes are feeling is up, but this is kind of where we are in the market. So, a healthy market's right around 70, which tells me that more at that point, like, you know, buyers are more willing to transact. They feel more comfortable. They're not feeling like the market's going to drop. And what it tracks is how people feel about their own financial outlook, right? About where their wages are and how they feel about the economy as a whole. So there's still a lot of pessimism in the market. And so you're gonna have to sell through that as an agent. So whether you're selling through it as, here's a good reason to buy, right? Using it as a good reason to buy, but also can talk in a list on your sellers about just getting the reality on pricing and
Mhm.
just kind of using other indices besides interest rates or besides, they're looking at estimates and all this other stuff you have to sell through already. But kind of tugging on sentiment, I don't think many agents really speak about it as much. They're really just always talking about, hey, it's a good time to buy, interest rates are down. But sentiment does wag the dog ultimately. And so I think it's important. So what does this mean? For us, I mean, agents and buyers are remaining cautious and it creates opportunity for investors. And so we've been talking about this in general. We're very, very cautious of the market. At the same time, we're not going to be overly cautious and not transact. If anything, we're getting more opportunities than we've ever worked on, but we're sifting through more stuff that tend to meet our criteria. And I'll kind of touch with you what that even means, what it is. But it allows us to close a lot more types of transactions. So they're out there. That's what I'll say. So it's like, as people like to all the time, where do you find the deals and this and that? It's like they're all over the place. The question is like, what kind of conversations you're having, what data sets you're prospecting to. We're very, very focused on motivated sellers. Okay, that is like everything. Motivated too from your perspective on having listings. I understand getting a listing and trying to get some deal momentum, even though the price may be too high. I get that from the retail perspective. From the distressed property perspective, it's always going to be life events. I mean, you're going to have life events in retail anyway, but from our perspective, it's always, we get a lot of divorce properties, a lot of inherited properties, a lot of, there are pre-foreclosure properties that do come up. And then there's like the sellers that's just like, if they've had this cosmetic fixer for a while, they tried to price it out at like $1 million, even though it's probably worth 700 because they're thinking that's what value is. And then they're finally coming down to reality of price because nobody, affordability is at an all-time low, but like people aren't willing to buy these properties anymore and waive all their contingencies and this and that unless it's turnkey effectively. And so this is where cash deals are really important. And so you need a motivated seller. I can't stress that enough. When someone says, I'm interested in taking an offer, and they're just kind of like tire kicking and just want to know where you may bring to them, we'll always price it out and give you, we have a full-time underwriting team. We'll get you guys values within 15 to 20 minutes on a desktop value. But effectively, do not waste time on those. They're going to drag you into the mud most of the time. So you have to spend time on really motivated sellers and hit data sets that are going to yield a result. So we talk a lot about that. I train on that. We do sell data. We offer data to brokerages. But it's like, it's very important. And so
What are some of the questions that you typically will ask a seller to see their level of motivation versus, oh yeah, I'll look at an offer versus like I need to sell?
I mean, I think ultimately it's the data set you're going after first. I think um like I if you're going after, I think people think investors buy NODs. That's like a big
Yeah.
one, notice of defaults. I think everyone thinks investors, that's where we find properties is at foreclosures. That's like saying every agent finds properties listings on a FISBO, right? Like, yeah, it's part of it, but it's a very small percentage. And ultimately, it's going after the data sets that are likely going to be a cash deal. So a lot of you guys in your current sphere of influence or farm probably have sellers that are looking to sell, but you haven't really uncovered the need or how to uncover the need yet. So it could be if you're prospecting a data set, let's say that is a senior looking to downsize from a 2-story to a 1-story, that's a different conversation or motivation than somebody going through a divorce
Hmm.
or death of a joint tenant where somebody passed away and there's a life event in that household and they may be looking to just sell, or a probate transaction where they died without a will or a trust, which is about 10% of San Diego, by the way, of the properties currently held are not held in a trust. So likely will end in a probate scenario. So these are already what I consider motivated because they're likely selling. And then how I look at it is how do you stack the data? So stacking the data means this. If I have, for example, somebody, let's say, I'm going to use the example, they have a reverse mortgage and somebody inherited the house, for example, right? So a reverse mortgage, somebody passed away, which is it's public data. You can pull an affidavit of death. And then let's say there's like 60 to 60% equity. These are now motivated data sets as opposed to like flyering your neighborhood. So that's an example. So I look at it more as like taking this really big macro approach and get super granular with the type of person or the type of selling situation that would yield a cash deal or a creative deal.
And then when you guys are pulling your data or you're selling data to brokerages, what are you selling or what are you offering to brokerages? Is it more predictive? Is it what is it that you guys are offering out?
Contact, contact information. So we'll stack the data, we'll skip trace the data, we ensure accuracy of the data, and then we'll offer that data to brokerages or like teams or an agent who are looking to prospect it.
And so then
So
I guess you're
go
probably
ahead.
going to get into this. So you guys offer the data out to agents or brokerages, and then you're then teaming up with that agent or brokerage once they find these deals
On
and
acquisitions.
got it.
Yep,
Okay. All right.
exactly. So you guys are prospecting them and you're working on stacking all that stuff and we're here as a buyer. It's not required to use us at all, right? As a buyer, we're there for valuations, estimates, everything. And ultimately it's your job to see like, hey, it could be a retail deal. The divorce is, it's a data set, but it's not a fixer. It's not a fixer,
Hmm.
I mean, also a big one's discretion. And we buy a lot of properties where like people just don't want to go to market and they don't want to deal with their neighbors seeing their situation or whatever. So the numbers to run are substantially higher. Like that's the other thing. I've ran the math and looked, I mean, like I said, I'll go back to data. I run the math overall on like cash deals and types of deals that are out there and what's available and just transactions as a whole. And if you took June, so the financial crisis, if you took June of '08 to June of '09, which was kind of the zenith of the crisis, I guess, effectively, where market was crashing, and you took June of 24 to June of 25 this year, we have 13% less transactions as a whole. Now, in those months in June of '08, where, for example, there was like much, it was more spike type of months where there was a ton of, and then it kind of tumbled down. But effectively, what this means is there's a lot of locked up equity that just needs a reason to move, or you have to only be working on people who are ready to go and ready to sell, um, and pricing things accordingly based off of where market is. So I think
I don't
part
want
of
to
that whole
sidetrack you on your presentation, but this is interesting and fun for me to talk about. So your run from June of 24 to June of 25 versus the '08 crash.
yeah.
What's your take on that? Is it just affordability? Is it low interest rates? Locking these sellers into their 3% loans. Why was it so slow from June of 24 to June 25?
Well, you had an election year. I think part of it, and obviously you did then as well. So the election year, the answer is all of it. I think interest rates, without a doubt, made a massive change of transactions. And when you had like 2 years of 0% federal funds rate effectively, and people are locked in at 2.9, there's a lot less deals that are going to happen because I think until rates go down, to go back to interest rate conversation, until rates go down around the fives, you're not going to see a lot of those trade up buyers because they're not going to trade their 2.9 for a 6.7 right now.
Mhm.
Now they may trade like a 3.5 to a 5.2 with enough equity they're putting down the next house, which is more likely. But also what tends to happen is when interest rates go down, inventory also floods the market. There's more inventory comes because there's more buying and selling happening, which does increases transactions. Um, so the real answer is, I mean, last year, I think 24, everybody felt with the election happening and a lot of uncertainty, it goes back to sentiment. People didn't feel very good about moving. And even now, unless it's like, it's weird, it's pockety, I think we can all agree. Unless people really love the property and they're like, this is what, and it's a really like a dialed in house and like construct, whatever, it looks great and it's a good neighborhood, they're really not transacting or they're looking around a little bit longer.
Mhm.
Um, so I think it's part of it too. It's like with affordability, that's the affordability thing. If they don't have an extra now, it's all based off price. So I'm giving you very broad numbers as of like the country, but it's all price driven effectively. Um, like for us, it's kind of a weird market. The beat market, what I call the beat market is like the middle is the most affected, which is like the 950 to 1.25. Those properties, and that's like if you take San Diego, landscape, that's like the Poway, Claremont, Escondido, Park of Escondido, really affected by rates
Mhm.
because those are smaller houses that were selling for 1.2, they're dropping to now 1.1, and people are like, I just don't want to pay it I'm not getting enough space. A lot of work from home too. Versus 950 and under, you still have like, you're still within conventional guidelines. People still are going to buy those. Those are kind of first time home purchases, which is wild to say, but it is like 650 to 950. Um, but 1.25 to 1.9 is still a very hot market. I say hot. Because you're still in a good school district at that point, and a lot of I'm seeing effect like a lot of boomers are kind of gifting equity to their adult kids to move and buy. So like, I think those tend to be pretty okay. Um, but you go 2 million to 4 or 2 to 3, it's got to be really, really good, really good. 3 to 4 is another world, like probably 180 days on market on average. I
Mhm.
think 2 to 3, depending on the area. I mean, you can move them, but they got to be done really well. They got to have some kind of wow factor too, like pool view. Adding in the districts too. You got to have a good district. So I think just like the location, it goes back. It's kind of back to the same old like location, location, location thing. It's really important, and it's price to current value ratio. So people feel like they're getting a good deal, they're going to buy. You know,
I'm
or
going
if they
to
have
keep
to.
getting off topic, but let me go ahead and
Yeah, sorry.
ask you a question. Can you talk about affordability, um, and where we are? So like, on the macro economy, you have our 10-year, 12-year cycles. We kind of missed that cycle around COVID time. The government infuses $20 trillion into the government. Quantitative easing, we've used all of our arrows in our quiver. So we've had like things that I read is like a reverse recession, whereas affordability of all of our cost of goods is so high, people can't afford these goods. So as opposed to everything dropping and people losing their jobs and that kind of recession that everyone's used to calling a recession, we've actually have a recession in the opposite regard where everything has gotten so expensive.
Yeah.
It's almost the same thing. So I mean, on the macro side, I mean, I know you're in San Diego and it's all pocket based for you guys and totally off topic from what you're talking about, but what's your take on the overall economy? And do you see a dip coming in real estate? Do you see a dip coming in the macro side of the world, the dollar? And how do you guys, I guess, tread that and move forward thinking about the larger picture?
A lot of questions.
Loaded question. Sorry about that. But my brain's going all over the place when I'm listening. I know this is
I'm
totally not a
sure. I mean,
topic for
as
you
we
guys,
are. I
but
mean,
this is, yeah,
it's
go ahead.
okay. These are my favorite conversations to have, frankly. Um, it's I mean, I'm more of like, how do we get here? I think like rates where they went were held way too long, whatever, or affordability. Here's the hard thing from the wage perspective is like you qualify for a mortgage based off your debt to income, period. What do you make? What are your debts? Here's a mortgage you get paid. This is, and there's a lot more, underwriters are very conservative underwriting borrowers as they should be because of what we dealt with, 15 years ago or 18, whatever, 17 years ago, whatever. I think because here's the problem. Here's why I'm so sentiment driven is because when people feel also inflation is going to go to 4.9% next year versus 3.6, which is what's expected. So when people expect more inflation, they also ask for more money in wages. So which freezes the hiring market. So like what tends to happen is, well, people are like, well, I'm not able to pay that because a lot of business owners or companies don't feel that way necessarily. They have to keep their costs affordable to be able to, keep everybody employed. So that's it. Like I said, it's really how people feel. Um, and if I think we all agree affordability. Now, what does that mean for the housing market? It's very microcentric. It's very microcentric. It becomes where local market knowledge it's not it's like the most important thing times 100 because the better you know your current pocket, the you're going to be doing a lot of transactions like so because if you buy coastal and I'm going to use San Diego or Orange County, like those types of buyers are insulated to risk and they're insulated to a lot of they're not dealing with the same wage issues as the middle. Um, so they're a little safer. As you go east and kind of more, working class, those are more affected. Now, what does that mean? I mean, it's hard to say because interest rates, then the very basic fundamentals of interest rates versus values is if interest rates go down 1%, this is mortgage rates, not federal funds rate, property values go up 10% annually. That's the math. Condos will go up 5%. Now, that's like a very broad number of math because people can afford more, period. That's it. They can pay more because their mortgage payments are lower based off of that rate. That drives pricing. Um, the rest is feeling and what we know, the rest is like there's different indices to follow, I guess is the answer. So, like if you go to Bakersfield and you say, hey, this is a $500,000 house, could go to 450, likely versus the coastal property in Dana Point, that like maybe is listed at, I'm gonna say coastal at 165, it probably still stays around 165. It may even ticks up a point, a point to 2 points because those buyers have money.
Yeah. All
I
right.
mean,
I digress. I didn't mean to get you off topic. So go ahead and
okay,
continue on with where you're going.
it's all good. I'm happy to answer questions, things after and hang out.
Yeah.
Here's how to work with us, right? Acquisitions and deal structure. So we do a lot of creative purchases. So um, I'm very cognizant of like people are very worried about um, what does this even mean creatively? I mean, look, buying creatively can be a lot of different things, right? So for us, cash deals are our primary business by a mile. Cash offers and what we tend to do, most deals that we buy are that way. We also do private and hard money. On the creative side, though, we will give offers that are creative if it yields that kind of approach. So like a subject to or a seller carry, these are not difficult necessarily, but they're difficult to explain to a seller. And a lot of times they're really like a vantage point to kind of test. I mean, we're happy to buy these if they do make sense and everyone can kind of understand how this works. But creative purchases, we can, I kind of explained there's different areas of how we do that. And wealth building. We do have agents invest with us. We do raise money when it comes to certain deals, and like we do work with agents. So that's a part of that. It's a kind of another topic, but it's another way to like be working and active in the space as opposed to just kind of always acting as agent.
And you guys have your own
Um,
fund?
no, I don't. I had a fund for I was part of the fund for a long time. No, we do. I kind of raise per deal basis.
Got it.
Just keeps things easier, cleaner, honestly, and simpler. My life. I got two young kids and I'm busy for so it's like I'd rather keep things a little easier overall.
Got it.
And a cash buyer and wholesaler. So we can help people close on all types of different transactions. I mean, because we are so structured as an acquisitions company, we're super quick. We'll get you guys high level numbers. We're experienced on pricing. We're actively in doing it all day. So we'll kind of give you an idea of where things are likely going to end up pricing wise. I'll tell you this from a high level also, we're not open door. We're not one of these cash deals that's like super, super. We're not a $1 billion fund or anything like that. But we don't have also all the red tape they have to go through to make an acquisition decision. So we're quick to react. We're not going to be the highest price you may have or could get anywhere in the market. It really depends. It really varies, but we are going to be a real price. And I think that's important when you guys get tied up or have been tied up by a company that like has lengthy contingencies and this and that. We don't renegotiate under contract. We're very simple as a cash buyer. We keep things easy.
What's your guys'
Um,
parameters? What are you looking at for underwriting loan to value or purchase to,
yeah,
where are you at?
I'll go through that for sure. I'll hit on it.
Okay.
Here's some creative options. Like I said, remodel, and I'm going to go over this too. Also, remodel to list stuff, which is really valuable, where we can come in, do construction on a property that's kind of like it could be cosmetic, it could be structural, it could be a lot of different things, where they do want to go to market, but they want to go with a market with a kind of a brand new house effectively and get a higher price. It does take longer, obviously, because you're not just taking a cash offer up front, but it's another strategy to help you get more listings and do more deals, especially right now where, like I said, people want turnkey. Um, so here's kind of like our cash offer scenario. Here's kind of high level math. And this is, I think the hard thing with most agents, is they just kind of don't understand how the math tends to work, of how valuations tends to work, and why pricing comes where it comes in on a cash deal. So hopefully this could be very helpful. So one of the first terms you have to learn, or you'll hear from us, you'll learn this is what's ARV mean. ARV means what's after repair value. Repair is also remodel, right? So there's a lot of great properties in San Diego that just were built in 2002, haven't been touched. They're nice houses, but they're not like new upgraded 2025 remodel, right? They're kind of builder grade, kind of just the white paint, carpet, stuff like that. And those will kind of sit. Not that those aren't going to move effectively, but they're going to sit longer for sure. A lot of those can qualify for like, hey, let's do, put in some work, get it market ready. It'll sell a lot faster on the market with some upgrades for sure. So ARV is a big one. That's very, very important word. Write that down. What's ARV mean? Second thing is percentage of ARV. So if you took an ARV, if you guys have you have your phones, or you could take a calculator on your phone and say, let's use $1 million for round number purposes because life's easy. Okay, so if I had ARV, meaning now what we don't do is what typical agents do on valuations is we do not value price per square foot. I've never once valued that way. I've looked at it for like indications of pricing, but it's not what we look at. The main reason why is because a fixer has nothing to do with price per square feet. So if someone sends like a CMA over of 3 houses that sold, all it looks like to me is a piece of paper with numbers on it, and none of them means anything. Meaning this, if one of them was on a cul-de-sac with a view and a pool, and it's even though it's the same square footage versus one's on a double yellow line facing the school, prices are going to be different. And I can't take the average. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Price per square foot doesn't really work. I can't say, oh, and then there's another one that's like on top of a canyon, even though they're all 3.2, 1,600 square feet, let's say, for example, they're all different. We'd all agree. Views matter. Does a pool matter? Does it have heating? Does it have not have heating? Does it have whatever? There's a million different nuances to every house, even though it could look like a model match. So that's important. So we'll take on typical like $1 million and we'll take like a percentage of ARV. This is our basic templated approach of how we value 83%. So now that leaves 17% for a couple different things, and I'll go with construction. For A, profit as the investor, B, commissions, C, holding costs, right? So we have a lot of net that comes out of here. Typically for us on our flips, we're liking to make, depending on the price, on average though, we're looking to make 10 to 12%, okay, of ARV. So that's kind of give you the high level numbers. Now, some that are quicker and easier and the time is quicker, of course, you could do a quicker deal. But any kind of wholesaling or flipping, fix and flip side is going to be right around the same pricing or buy and hold, by the way. So a lot of people are like, well, if you can just keep it. It's like, yeah, but it's still math. You can't refinance if you have too much leverage on any property related to value. So you lose a lot of short-term outs. So then renovation budget. Right now, and this is light, it's about $80 a square foot. In 2000, let's say back in my day, shit, well, I used to remodel that same 3.2 1,600 for like $65,000. It was 35 to $40 a square foot on average, adding an air conditioning unit. That has completely changed. And anyone who's been in the space kind of understands prices have gone up, talking about inflation, but labor's gone up, materials have gone up. It just is. It's hard to get out of deals for less than 80 to really 120 a square foot. And this is an easy way to template things. So typically what we'll do with this kind of percentage is take about 80 a square foot. So if you took your calculator, let's say you took the same 1,600 square foot house. And let's say you took, so I'll take 1,600 times 80. Our renovation is about 128,000. Now that's safe. We could go under that. We certainly go over that depending on what's wrong with it. This is assuming you have a new roof, or maybe you have a main line issue, or like say you have structural changes, all old electrical. These are older houses. I mean, we'll buy stuff that is dilapidated and things are just cosmetic, so these numbers will vary. If it's a condo, it's mainly interior, so looking at like 50 to 60 a square foot. Now if it's in Rancho Santa Fe, it's, a much higher end property, looking at like 200 square foot. It just kind of depends. That's, I hate to say it that way, but it does depend. But this is the average. And then we'll subtract about 10 to 15% for budget, and this puts us at our purchase price. So let's take this math. If I took $1 million property, so putting $1 million in your calculator, times 0.83 minus 128,000. It's about $700,000 purchase. Now, if there's budget or issues, add another 10 to 50%, maybe minus 12,000. Would be around 690, and I give a range. It's about 690 to like 725, because it does vary. It's right around there. So like a lot of people, I don't know where the whole 70% rule came from. That's an okay template. The problem is it doesn't factor in construction. You know, it now if construction is only 50 a square foot, you can pay a lot more than, you know, 690 to 725 versus if it's a total tear down, now you got to pay a lot less. So like the number tends to vary, but what it gives you an idea of is where acquisitions tend to come in. What tends to happen with agents is if they have these fixers on the MLS, they'll get tied up by somebody who's looking to renegotiate down and they tie them
Mhm.
up at like 810. Big thing I see with agents when they list fixers too is they just take what they think construction is and they subtract it from what they think the ARV is. And it's just, it doesn't leave any room for an investor. So then it falls to a retail buyer price, but the retail person doesn't want to put in the money because they don't have it. So it sits, meaning they'll take $1 million ARV and price it at $899. And let's say it's a total fixer. It doesn't sell. It just doesn't sell. So a lot of that has to do with going into these deals, you know, where we've been most effective working with teams and brokerages, and we are effective every day, is when they have a deal. We're happy to sign a BRBC with you guys, of course. Uh, sorry, beep, did I say that right?
Yeah,
Going
close
into
enough.
any deal. So like you don't have to share an address with us until you feel comfortable, till you have all your stuff signed, all good, no worries. We'll value that deal, kind of say, hey, or kind of where we're coming, and they have a range and they go into those properties. So they have some options. Hey, you know, could be a cash deal. They're going to come in right around here-ish. Now we don't know. You haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen it yet. You guys just prospected the seller. Maybe you have, but you're not entirely sure what value may tend to come in at. And you can come in with options as opposed to, it's not that marketing isn't important because it is, but everyone's selling marketing. You know, everyone's like, hey, we're going to sell this. We have drones. We got this. We're going to market your property right now. MLS. It's good to come with options and marketing, right? Of course, you have to market these processes to sell, but you got to know the local market knowledge, and knowing that deal is likely to get you the deal more than just having one, right, or the other.
Mhm.
Remodel to sell is very, very similar. We just have a couple different requirements. So, and I'll go through what we tend to do with these types of deals is our math. Let me go through. I mean, besides kind of this is kind of we take the ARV. So that same property, we could pay more. Okay. We can pay more technically because what we're going to do is subtract, we're going to fund the construction. The reason why we can pay more is we don't have closing costs on the front side. Okay. We're not paying double the cost. So basically let's say that seller says, oh, I really want to get 825, or I really want to get that 800 number. We could potentially do that. There's a couple things that have to be in play, which I had in the last slide, which I'll share with you guys kind of separately. It's also on our websites, but we have to figure out what our cost is going to be to come in and do the construction for them. We have to agree to the sticker price with the seller, and then we'll net anything on top and we'll pay agent commissions out on top. So by way of example, the same property is going to be sold. It's going to be another $1 million property. We'll just subtract the construction about 128,000, puts us right around that it's called 870 to make life easy. And then we'll subtract our capital management fee. Let's say we come in at like 820 because we're going to finance it. And let's say we're also going to pay commissions too, which we do. So that same property, we can kind of come around 800, for example. Because we have to record a trust deed against the property. We have to get a power of attorney, meaning they're going to sell it. They have to be displaced. They can't be in the house. But we love doing these deals. The hardest thing what tends to come in is the seller not being there effectively, kind of thing.
Mhm.
But we can do these all day. I mean, we're happy to do these. You know, there's a lot of brokerages that started to adopt this strategy to get more listings and also for recruiting. Um, the hardest thing is with with brokerages is most agents, say most for sure, they're not experienced. They're like your resource. You probably have a good handyman. You probably have a good home inspector. Probably do know some good flooring and paint and window people. That's valuable, but you're not necessarily operationalized on the construction side, right? You can piece stuff together, of course. We are. So you don't have to spend all this time trying to GC a property and design it and do all this construction for the seller where we do that. So you just kind of work with us, partner with us. These tend to kind of like vary based off the situation. So there are more nuance to the cash offer because there's more inner workings at play, what the seller wants to net, what their situation is, how many loans are on the property, because now we're taking a bigger risk, effectively partnering with the seller and you. We do not do these unless they have a listing with you guys as the agent, because that's the contingency for us. And for them, they get, an experienced investor coming in. They're going to have a turnkey. You guys get to sell a much nicer house. And it's an option. You know, I think it's, especially right now, options are very, very, very valuable. So I'm going to say, hey, we'll throw every option we can your way. So we were talking about this before. Our ideal scenario, I can't stress it enough, motivated seller. We're right about under 3 million purchase price. Really under 2.5 is ideal, but we're typically under 3 million. When we have properties, we just did a deal, I mean, between 500, 700. We have a 900, no, it's a million. We're pretty rangy as far as pricing goes in deals. Once you get over 3-ish to 4, we're getting into a difficult niche market that we're just not typically your buyer for those types of properties. We maybe help source and maybe we can find an investor for you or buyer for you, but they're not, our likelihood of doing well in those is just not our experience. Under square feet, cosmetic upgrades. Also structural foundation, we're happy with it. We're fine with those as long as the pricing is there. No major value killers. So I'm very avoidant over like busy streets, corner lot next to a street light, next to, like, we're not a mixed use buyer. We're not going to do, I don't want to say value killers, like super rural, kind of out there. So more suburban and urban type of investor. Now another thing is, I used to avoid the MLS like the plagues. I just never thought there was deals there. There are now. So if you're a really good buyer's agent, we do not like doing blind offers. We're not those people. So we deal with agents. They're like, just submit an offer. We're like, this is a waste of everyone's time. Not that we can't get deals, but we want to know if you can, because our strategy is not to tie people up and renegotiate price. When agents see our pricing on the MLS, they're like, oh, you're just lowballing us. Even though the property's been sitting for 120 days and it's a fixer, and we're just giving it a real price it's actually going to close at, they may not be ready for it. So we're happy. Now, to be clear, we have now, like with agents, as long as we're on the same page, if our strategy is to tie something up and we're like, hey, let's bring in inspectors and do the thing, and you figured out there's motivation to do it, as long as we're on the same page, we can do it with you. But it's really not something we want to do as a buyer. We'd rather just give someone an as-is offer and kind of go. The only inspection we tend to care the most about is our main sewer line stuff. That's really what we care the most about. Effectively, like it's not a contingency, but we have to make sure that we're not going to screw ourselves walking into a scenario of like a really sunk hidden cost that could affect all of us. So not ideal, no immediate need. I mean, obviously there has to be an immediate need. Price too high, kind of over rural or undesirable, value killers, difficult to value, new on the MLS. So like these new on the MLS deals are interesting because people will text them to us like, look at this deal just came up. It's like, let them go through some pain first, unfortunately, until they drop their price or they fall out 2 or 3 times. I mean, Brennan and I, we can count, I don't know how many times, feels like a month that we're like the 3rd or 4th escrow we had to call back for them because they fell out. We had a deal we're closing on the next 2 weeks that it was brought to us 3 to 4 months ago. And we had a good strategy with the agent on it where he's like, then he came at a really high price. We're like, dude, we can try. It's just too high. And he dropped it 140,000, came back to us. I think were they in escrow again too? Went to market, went in escrow, and then we're going to close on it November 7th at like 140,000 below where he had it listed. But because it was new to the MLS, it had to go through some pain, basically. And we have like countless stories of like that. I mean, honestly, countless and countless. But it just comes down to your ability to kind of sell through to the consumer and just let them know, like, here's where your situation is, so we can give you guys an opportunity to like get the deal done. I like to talk about my top sales ways because I think they're important. You know, number one is value your attention. Period. There's so many distractions. I think it's like probably the easiest time to find success, but the easiest time to be distracted by every little dang thing. And I think most agents are just finding ways to not do the work and finding ways to not prospect, finding ways to not like circle dial, finding ways to not hit numbers. And because of that, their sales are struggling. Like there's agents I know that are having record years, in spite of all this stuff we're talking about, and we can go to the weeds on. Agents I know that are just like barely getting by, and agents are, I mean, at this point, we do a lot of events. We're around San Diego a fair amount. We have an event, November 7th, which is like all the top San Diego, I'd say, people in the real estate space, particularly in San Diego. There's already 350 attendees confirmed. And like a lot of these names I've never heard, and they're doing really well. And there's people that I have not seen in years that probably are out of the industry at this point. And I think a lot of it is just a lot of distraction. So it's like using social media the wrong way, and just not doing the work, period. So it's like, I can't stress that enough. You have to hit bigger numbers to hit the returns. So some people look at, okay, if I talked about before, the market's down 13% from when it was in 08, 09. So you could look at it one way of saying, oh man, I knew it sucked, and use what's called confirmation bias of why you're not doing well. Well, it's just confirmed the fact I'm not doing well. Or you can say, shit, I better work 13% harder to meet transaction volume, or 25% harder to increase transaction volume, or 50% harder to increase transaction volume. And so it's like, that's how I look at it is, well, just do more work than anybody else and you'll find success. But what you can't do is just wait around and be upset about it. Here's a big thing too. There was a Harvard sales study about time working over anything else. And this is a cool study because, and you can look it up and reference it. It came down to like Harvard, they studied like the top salespeople in the, I guess, the world or United States. And it was like, what makes them the best salespeople? It's like a lot of them, yeah, okay. Were they charismatic? Were they witty? Did they have scripting and this and that? And it's like, none of those really mattered. You know what the number one trait was? They worked more hours. That's it. They worked more hours. They worked more hours. They worked later. They worked in the morning. They worked on the weekends. They just worked more hours than anybody else. That is literally the number one trait of the top sales performer. Not talent, not like, yeah, of course. Now, here's the cool thing that happens when you work more hours is you compress time frames of education, because you only get educated through transactions. You don't get educated in theory. You don't get educated sitting here. I think you get data sitting here, but you don't get educated sitting here. You only do that through doing deals, like failing, having successes, assessing why you failed, assessing why you had success, and then compounding those efforts daily. So it's like if you took the same, for example, I say this to our guys all the time. So we run like an outbound prospecting model. Okay, so a lot of cold calling, a lot of cold calling. Okay, so here's the math. And I say the basketball hoop is 10 feet high because that's what it is. No one's going to raise it. No one's going to lower it. That's what it is. If you were born and you're 5'5", the basketball hoop's still 10 foot high versus if you're 6'5", it's still 10 feet high. That is the standard basketball hoop. Okay, so the good thing about that is we know where the standard is. So if we know what the standard is, then we can now hit numbers to get there. So meaning this, the average salesperson makes on average 3 new contacts a day. 3 new contacts a day. That's new contacts. Okay, that's conversations. So if you're doing less than 3, you're below the average. Doing more than 3, you're above the average. Okay, so take 3. Now let's say you worked every day, including Christmas. Every day, Christmas, Hanukkah, no matter. New Year's, Thanksgiving, Halloween, and you did 365 a year. That's 1,095 contacts. Okay, 1,095 new contacts a year. It's the average salesperson in any industry, by the way. It's really, at this point, probably less because people are convincing themselves they're really just talking to other people in their industry more than they're talking to new consumers. Okay, especially agents, they tend to talk to them amongst themselves more than they talk to other consumers. Unless you're really good at buying properties from your team members or finding needs amongst each other, which I think is a big part, it's still not a new prospect. Does that make sense? It's
Mhm.
just it's the current one that you're fostering every day. Okay. I've been running a call center model for the last 7 years, a little bit longer than that, actually, 8 years. And our callers are required to make 150 new calls a day. Okay, so 150. So the difference is that's 54,000 new contacts a year. So if I took 365 times 150, that's 54,750 new contacts. Okay, so here's like the math of education is it would take the same person 54 years to get the same experience as we do in 1 year. That's the difference. Because also when it comes to, now I'm not saying you need to make 150 calls a day, although I think you should if you're light on prospecting, if you're new, if you're just trying to get sales going. Absolutely. You should always be ramped. That's marketing, that's prospecting. We're talking about calling. Yeah, there's texting, but like ultimately we're talking about how do we have more conversations is you have to hit much bigger numbers, much bigger numbers. When you hit bigger numbers, you'll find a lot of things tend to happen. You'll start to learn faster. You'll start to get through transactions quicker. You'll start to gain so much volume. You want to be so overwhelmed with volume that you're forced to hire and bring in help. That's the kind of stuff that that's growth. Okay, that's growth. So for us, just so you guys know, the cash market is like 4% of the market. Because it's 4, so that means 96% of the market is more retail. Okay, so if you hit these same numbers on the retail side, you're like from brokerage, and then you're going to come across cash deals in your prospecting anyway, hitting different data sets, hitting different different markets, trying to find high equity owners that are in an area you want to be an agent in and like really, really focused and hyper nuanced. You will find, for sure, you're going to find deals. Most people tend to do is they look in the MLS, oh, nothing's for sale, my buyer's not happy, and they kind of have 1 to 2 people they're working with at a time. And it's not enough volume. It's not enough volume right now at all. And your lender's not going to help you. They're not going to bring you another deal. Like you have to hit higher numbers. So what does that mean? Money buys you time. That's great. So when you do more transactions, you do earn more money. That's the nice thing about being in sales. Number one. But money is just only going to buy you time. Your ability to learn will always compound more than any other piece of real estate. This is why you're here too. And I say this a lot of times is you have to give yourself grace for mistakes. Okay. So I think a lot of the reason there, when I get into, oh, why aren't you hitting bigger numbers? Or why people aren't prospecting more? Why they're not doing more? A lot of times is they're just really scared of making mistakes. They're scared of like the pain it's going to take or like physical harm it might cost them when they're like going through the challenges. And ultimately, you have to give yourself grace for mistakes. That's part of the process. Like we make mistakes every day. I make mistakes every day. Brandon makes mistakes every day. We all do. The challenge is when we make the mistake, we don't dwell on that mistake. We use it as a data point to learn, and then we go do more. Okay, there's this old adage in sales. It's like your best time to get a deal is once you just close your last deal. The best time to get a deal is once you just got through your latest mistake. That's like this. It's like the same thing. It's like, but callousing yourself through those transactions, it's the same as building endurance while running. It's like you have to run through pain and build that threshold to know where your threshold is to keep going. And so I can't stress it enough. Like that is where growth happens, period, is through the pain. So if you're having a little bit more anxiety around like prospecting and you're worried about what the market is and all that stuff, like unfortunately procrastinate later. Like you don't have time to worry about it. You just have to keep going. Right? We've all been in sticky transactions where things are hard and the buyer's pissed at you, the seller might be pissed at you, whatever, right? That's life. By the way, that's not impervious to you. That's real estate, I think, as a whole, especially right now, it's very finicky. So because of that, you need to make it up with volume. it'll always be your answer is more deals. I think you talk to your brokers here, and they're always going to tell you just do more deals. Like you're dwelling on the one deal that's having a challenge. Like unfortunately, that's what it is. Um, Here's my information and Brendan's information too. I know you're going to share it as well with your team. Um,
Yes. We have all the flyers from Brendan already, so
okay,
those are
cool,
all going to be attached underneath this. We'll send an email out with the video,
cool,
obviously, and include all of your guys' information on it as well.
cool. But I'm just right on time. Any questions we have, or I can stop sharing too?
Yeah, we usually open it up for about 5-10 minutes of
Okay.
Q&A. Looks like we have a couple already typed in. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to type them in.
Flag lots. Flag lots, they're fine um as long as it's not in like it depends, I guess. Yeah, it's just the type of lot. Cash buyer, wholesaler. Wholesale is how we sell it. Cash, it's all, but as far as coming as a cash buyer, the pricing is the same. So there's not like a necessarily difference.
It's just more on how you're exiting from it. You're
It's
either
all like
selling the contract or actually buying the property.
correct or keeping the house.
Hmm.
Construction costs. Oh, so it's more of a comment. Yes, construction costs, I think is the most missed part. And as expected, I don't know retail like you guys know retail, but we know construction.
All right. Any other questions from anybody that's on here? Sue asks, how are you different from any other investor buyer out there?
Mm, I think experience and volume. So that's how we're much different. There's a lot of investors out there, to your point. There's thousands of investors, but most are going to be mom and pop. They're not going to buy nearly as many types of deals. Like if
Hmm.
you send us a deal right now in pick a we looked at a deal this morning in Norco. We looked at another deal in Chula Vista. We looked at another deal in Route 2 in Oceanside. I mean, how many came in today? We're looking at Brennan. That the difference is we're closing a lot more types of deals, and we're not like as specific as to like sell me this one house in this one area,
Hmm.
and we're a repeat buyer.
Sweet. Do you guys have a minimum transaction amount? Like, is there anything too small that you guys wouldn't buy?
No, good question.
And do you guys ever do like ground up builds? Like, are you guys ever buying lots and going through the whole permitting process?
No, I'm not a ground up person. I'd rather be the second owner or third owner of a property. I mean, a lot of people lose their ass in the ground up thing.
Yeah.
It's right now, like there's this big land rush, I guess you can call it that in San Diego. And I think it's a lot of incompetence of people just like wanting to take on more of these properties. Not that some of them aren't good operators, but when you're doing all that work to sell it, I just don't think it's worth it at this point. I think it's like um unless your use case and you have a lot of incentives from the city. We're at an event with the mayor 2 weeks ago, and I was talking to him about permitting because it's annoying, really annoying, like drives us nuts. It takes forever to get permits done. Like our average permitting timeline is like 5 months for some of this stuff. And he's like, well, unless you're doing affordable, you're at the back of the line. And so the pros and cons of affordable, it's like we're not Lennar, you know what I mean? We're not building like thousands of properties at a time. Um, the problem with that is you're building to sell, and I just don't think with all that, it's because it has to be affordable, or like you could build to rent there, but like no, we don't want to do a government subsidy type
Hmm.
um renters. It's just not you know, our criteria we like to play in necessarily.
Got it. I'll answer those next two questions. So you guys, or I guess you can answer it. You guys are only Southern California. Do you guys ever do out of state? Because a couple of these agents, one just asked from Arizona and one from North and South Carolina. Are you guys mainly or only Southern California?
Yeah, yeah. I'd say
Uh,
like we can look at stuff out there. We can see if we can help you guys find a buyer for certain types of properties. It's just not our. There's so many deals out in Southern California that it's hard for us. Like, um, I do have some people I know like to buy. I could just refer you to, but it's I'd say it's side of the desk. If we can help, we can. We will.
and for Veldon and Nikki, it's kind of the same concepts though. So we can get you the same lists, it's gonna be the same scripts, just finding a different buyer out there, kind of plug and play. So if you guys want to use the same resources, obviously feel free to do that.
And do any of you guys have any questions on the creative financing or an AITD or subject to? Do you guys know what that is? That was to our agents, not you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
I think one thing you kind of touched on is just going in with options. So obviously with Link, the vertical integration, we go in with the bundle and save. We try to promote cash offer, buy before you sell. Um, at the end of the day, for agents, it never hurts to have 4 or 5 options. Hopefully, the seller is going to end up using you for one of them. At the very least, if you're going in and only pitching our 5 step marketing plan or talking about the bundle and save program, and they end up going with a cash offer because you didn't present it, you're going to feel kind of dumb that you didn't at least throw it out there and they went with a different agent who brought them a cash offer. So, whenever we are stuck in a sticky situation or we have a deal, we just had one in Ranch Santa Fe almost fall out or it did fall out because of a foundation issue. Brendan's the first guy I call. So, hey, what's the value on this? What would a cash buyer be coming in at? At the very least, it's a data point. So we go back to the seller and say, here's an investor we typically work with. Here's where their offer's at. If you don't take this, you're going to have to get really, really lucky and try to find an end user who's going to come in and deal with a couple $100,000 of foundational issues. Um,
Yeah.
Lucky we did find that and got kind of lucky on it, but um, at the very least, it was something we can go back to the seller with and have a conversation. It wasn't just, oh, I don't know, like let's just drop the price and see what we get. You're going
Yeah.
back with information.
Another thing we're helpful too is keep making sure you guys keep the listing, unfortunately, because a lot of these are expiring on agents because
Yeah,
they just keep bringing an offer.
yeah,
Like regardless of I think what's funny about cash offers to me or agents are like a lot of times are like some of them, not all of them are like don't want to like present it. And it's like it is what it is. You got to give them
yeah,
some kind of vantage point because if they want to ask you questions like, hey, what would an investor pay?
yeah,
A lot of people like have this interesting like thinking of, oh, an investor is just going to pay me retail cash. It's like, no, dude, the cost of cash, there's a cost to money
yeah.
and there's like the investor's buying for a return. So it's more like how to explain it in a way it's like non-offensive to them. You're like, look, I'm not trying to offend you, but here's why the investor's coming where they're coming in.
Hmm.
Because they have to make profit. It's like how it's presented. And then it can kind of like, so they're gonna come in like, yeah, we're listed at 2 million. It might be at like 135, 1.4 because they got to put in 300,000. They want a profit, or they want to have a refinance ability. You can't refinance anything above 75% of value.
Hmm.
Like 75% of that value. Like here's where they might want to be. Um, so then they have context to the numbers.
Yeah.
A lot of times agents are just scared they can be intimidated to present them.
And then what's your guys' offer to purchase ratio? How many offers you guys write in a day or uh, offers you writing to deals you get accepted?
It's a good question. We do a lot of verbal offers, some people, because they're kind of, I don't know, Brennan, what is that?
Like a true written
Probably like
offer, we're
10,
probably
5
at
to
like
10%.
10% of the leads that come in.
Yeah.
Like true, we're close on, we think we can piece it together, but we'll always give numbers and like vantage points.
Yeah.
And so then you guys feel that agents, or that's one of our pushes is, our agents are going to use you guys to a certain extent. It won't piss you guys off. Use you guys as their floor, so to speak, and said, like, here is your cash offer price. However, let's go ahead and get this thing listed and try to get you guys more. But if you can't, here's at least your fallback number. I mean, is that going to upset you guys?
It just depends on the scenario. There's others where they're just like, I want a cash deal. I mean, you'll know going into these properties. I mean,
Yeah.
we buy fixers. We're in situations where there's murders, there's bizarre stuff in these houses, hoarding situations, like gang activity, tenant barricading themselves. Like the cash deals are like, we buy a lot of those houses. I think we're talking on the cosmetic side. It's kind of what you're referring to. It's as like a consumer who's like, well, like I could or I couldn't.
Right.
We'll
That
always
goes
give a
back to your
range.
motivated seller comment. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
their motivation can vary based off of the degree of their situation, right? Of course.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or like the unfortunate part about our side of the business is we deal with a lot of mental health stuff because, people live in these conditions. Like it's not like we were at a property in Spring Valley, like my contractor couldn't even see the foundation because there was 2.5 feet of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we do a lot of that stuff. That's not uncommon.
Yeah.
Like we do a lot of hoarder houses. So cash deals are pretty like, that's it. That's kind of what that is,
All over the
unless
place.
you're gonna, and you just want to be done with it. Cause a lot of these times when you're dealing with some of these sellers, unfortunately, you don't want to deal with them long.
Yeah.
You really don't. You want to be in and out. You're like, here's the cash deal. Maybe you bring a couple of investors to that thing. And you're just like, it's not, you know what I mean? Unless you want to bring a trailer and try, I just think don't invest a lot of money in people that are really broke and struggling. Just give them the cash offer and have them go because they're going to drain you of a lot of resources. I've seen it happen with some agents too.
Yeah.
Just dump it, man. Just take the
Yeah.
deal. We got a
Um,
lot of those.
for our agents, if they have anything, what's the best way to contact you guys? Call, text, email?
Yeah. Yeah. We're not super formal. We're really not. Like we have stuff on our website, but ultimately, like we have, like I put our stuff in our chat. It's on our last slide there. It's the best way to contact us. You could text, email. It's not a big deal, but we're super responsive. I mean, text, email, whatever. We get stuff through that goes. It's our CRM, but ultimately, it doesn't have to be super formal at all.
Text Brendan.
He'll answer.
Perfect. We'll include both of you guys' contact information. Once again, you guys already sent over all the flyers, kind of doing the explainers. So for all the agents, feel free to use that when you're going on a listing presentation as well. But yeah, thank you guys very much for coming on today and running through everything. And we were going to be rolling out an internal link competition where cold calling and cold outbound is going to be one of the most, I guess, one of the biggest pieces of it. So I'm hoping to be sending you guys from our company quite a few deals here pretty soon. So thank you guys very much for jumping on.
Yeah. Thanks for having us, man. Sounds
Yeah.
good.
Thank you guys.
All
Thanks,
right.
guys.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.